Hey, hello. A friend of mine was asking me a question and he wanted me to talk about the African church. What did I think about African church? In 20, 30 years back, the most of the African church, according to my knowledge, used to be one of the most powerful institutions in the land, church in general. But today I'll be talking especially the African church, my people's church. It used to be one of the most powerful institutions in the land. It was a place where a lot of people can go and find refuge. Uh, it was almost like a place where you can go if you're having problems and you'll be helped. It was so powerful. They had so much power that a lot of the things, maybe you're going through problems with your family, they came in and intervene and be able to solve the problems. If you're having problems in your marriage, they came, they fixed it. The people were actually like servants, but now it has become an institute that is mostly run by armed robbers, thieves, and pimps. People that are taking advantage of the poor, the needy, the less educated, the single. Mostly, it's full of single women. And then you ask yourself why. And if you see even a lot of young people, they don't go to church anymore, and a lot of men are not going to church because most of the time, I'll tell you something, the young people can see through the bullshit of the pastors, and a lot of men can see through the bullshit of the pastors. Women, they're very, very, how do I say, they're weak naturally, so most of the time they're easily manipulated by these pimps and thieves or whatever. I call them con artists, that are playing on their intellect, their emotion, because they know the weakest link or whatever. And since a lot of them, they're going to churches that are run by men, a lot of them thinking, oh, one day I might become the pastor's wife, even though the pastor is married. So a lot of them, they keep following sheep like ships or whatever, because you must also understand, they're being played at an emotional level. And that is why if we look at church today, most of the 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 people who go to church, they're actually single. Do you know over 80% of the African church, it's single, whatever I'm talking about, and most of it is women. They go to church every single day, saying, oh, I'm going to have a husband, 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 but they never get one because they're so caught up in the pastor's affair and church affairs, so they never really make time. And church does not really encourage them, to go out and date and, play their own part just in case they meet a man and prepare themselves, so they're actually like more married to a church, but going home and crying and complaining to their girlfriends, whatever. So church it has failed, like 99% of the people. And if you see, this institution, in those days they used to talk about, oh, eat right, let's go on a fast, let's take a day and just pray for the nation or whatever. But you can see the people who run this institution, they just take the things that are easy to be followed or whatever, and then they just do that because it's easy. Even things like fasting, if you realize, even like the African churches, I'll tell you 80% of the pastors, they're fat, they're overweight, because they eat and eat and eat and eat, because food is mostly like treasure to them or whatever. When someone is fat, it comes from a point of greediness, no self-control. And why would anyone want to be in an institution to be led by a man that is gluttoning, with food and eating and doesn't know when to stop? Jesus himself, as maybe the founder of Christianity, you know, he washed the feet of the people. That's what he did with his disciples. He didn't drive big cars or expensive anything. He lived very, very poor because he knew that he was a servant of the people. But a lot of the churches now, their leaders, They're not, servant. They become thieves. They're enriching themselves, and you can see them, as they go down the road with their gobblers, big bellies, as they say, "Oh, come, let me pray for you." I remember one time talking to a friend. I'm like, "You don't let those people unclean." That's what I call them, unclean humans, who, their bodies are unclean. Why would you let someone whose temple is so unclean, to put their hands or to lay their hands on you? For me, it's an abomination, because when you let someone who's unclean, you carry upon all their curse and all the abomination, and you find yourself, trapped into all of that. So it's very, very important, to really see beyond the veil that these people, they're nothing but just, using the people. And it's very, very sad, because I see a lot of people who have nothing, they're giving their all and all because the pastor is saying that, and it's terrible. Yeah, the church has become, how do I say, even if you look at, most of the people who go to church, these churches, the highest amount of, sickness in church, the gossip, the lie, they don't act Christ like at all. They have no tendency of Christ like in them. The whole grudges. If you see, most of them, that's why most of them who go to church, they have a lot of problems. A lot of problems. So that's why. And the way church has also made a lot of, especially these women, is that they have so many problems, and the way they're being brainwashed by the pastors or whatever, even the way they're being brainwashed, they're not even ready for a man. And the reason I'm saying that is because most of the men who are looking for women also, most of them can't deal with these kinds of women, because they don't even know nothing about relationship, and they don't really have a lot of standard. They're not like dateable. So there was a statistic I was reading that over 90 to 80% of the women in African churches will never get married. They'll never ever find a man, because their ways, how do I say, are very, very, their ways, are intolerable. You can't tolerate it. They have a lot of issues, so many issues with them, that they never step outside to be like, "Hey, how do I begin to fix my problems?" All they know is church. I'm gonna sit there and pray God will send a man. They don't want to work on themselves. All these problems they have, they think the problems will just disappear. So I just wanted to make that comment. I know, hey, some pastors might see this and think, "Hey, maybe I'm totally against church or whatever." I'm not against church. I'm just against the ones that are stealing from their own people instead of building their people. A lot of people don't have a place to go. They don't have a, how do I say? Church in those days used to be a place you can go, and they'll have a place like, "Hey, you can stay in church for a few days, 3 days, since you lost your job, and then until you get to your feet or whatever." The churches will tell you nowadays, "You can't stay here, it's liability." The pastors drive nice cars while their members catch the bus. How fair is that? For me, um, I stopped. I saw through this nonsense a long time ago. No matter, I have a lot of friends that are pastors or whatever, but every single time I meet them, I tell them, I let them know how I feel about church, how much it has failed these people. And if you think I'm lying, prove me wrong. I've dared to really meet one pastor that was really trustworthy, because if you see a lot of them, they don't, they're just all for themselves, and their family. And also, that's why a lot of young people, they don't feel excited anymore to go to church, because church is full of BS. And a lot of men, they begin to see, more churches actually breaking relationship. People are actually separating. There's more separation in church. There's more, you name any abomination that you run from, it's more in church than anywhere. If you want to be sick, even if you see the way church, people don't even understand that without holiness no man shall see God. But without holiness, what is that saying? You have to have a clean body. You have to clean up the temple. God does not live in a building. He lives in a church. I mean, in the body. God does not live in a temple. He lives in a body. So, church does not promote that. Most of the time when, you see all these people, they have all this, the most fattest, obese, sick, people. You can always see them in church, all kinds of disease. How can a people who worship the most be the most neglected by God? Think about it. Is there something they're doing wrong? Maybe we begin to ask question. How come we pray so much? We call God, 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 but at the same time, the same God has forsaken us. What is going on? What are we doing wrong? Okay, let me know what you think about that. Okay, thanks.